Okay, so it looks like we're live. Hey guys, welcome to the first Fish the Moment live stream. I'm really excited to be doing this with y'all today. And today what we're going to do is we're actually going to go through 3 subscribers' lakes. They sent me either emails on my fishthemoment1@gmail.com account or through Instagram. And so I'm going to go through their 3 lakes. And I'm also going to answer some questions at the end. So I'm going to have like 15 or 20 minutes for Q&A. And so I'm really excited to, again, be talking about some subscribers' lakes, and hopefully through this process using Google Earth and Navionics, I'll be able to maybe pick out a few good spots y'all can use on the water, and hopefully you can just kind of learn how to use these tools to find more fish on your home lake. So if you guys have any questions along the way, or if there's anything that's going wrong with the microphone or with any of the other stuff that I'm using, just let me know in the chat on the side. I actually see a bunch of you guys are already talk in the chat. Really appreciate that. So just let me know if anything's going wrong. Again, I'm using completely new software here. So actually, let me get some music going here. Okay, so I got some music going. So what I'm going to start off doing is going through one of the lakes I know, just to kind of get myself warmed up to this live stream concept, and also to let some people get on if they're not here right away. Also, I see a lot of people are commenting right now about some lakes that they want me to look at, and I actually have the lakes picked out already today that I'm going to use, but I do have some instructions right here on the bottom right of the screen where you can actually email me your lake with some information, and then I can use them in future live streams. I plan to do about 3 or 4 live streams over the next 2 weeks, and then I'm going to be doing 1 a week pretty much for the rest of the year, hopefully. So there's plenty of chances for you guys to get your lakes featured, and so you can submit multiple, submit 1 every other week. So either way. So let's get started. I'm going to look here first at Lake Degray. Okay, so Lake Degray, this is in central Arkansas. It's a really good fishery. It used to be really good about 7 or 8 years ago when there was grass in it, but for whatever reason the grass just died out and the fishing's become really tough. But it's a deep, clear reservoir, and it normally takes anywhere from like 12 to 15 pounds to win a tournament out here. And I don't know, it's still a really fun lake to fish. There's a lot of fish in it, and so let me just kind of go through some of the stuff here that I like to fish and kind of warm you guys up to the way I'm going to break down lakes for y'all. So first off, I'm just going to start by looking at Google Earth. That's how I start looking at all new lakes. If I'm going to go fish a tournament on a brand new body of water, I always start on Google Earth. And the reason I like that is because you can actually see what the banks look like, maybe what the available cover is, and you can also see the water clarity. So if you look at Lake Degray here, you can see on the bottom end of the lake is very dark, and that normally indicates clean, clear water. And actually the water clarity at Lake Degray is anywhere from 7 to 8 feet on the lower end. And then the middle end, you see it kind of, or the middle part of the lake, you can see it gets a little bit dirtier, and the water gets a little bit muddier, and then up at the top end it's super muddy, kind of like chocolate milk, especially if we have rain. So what I normally like to do when I'm fishing any lake is I like to break it up into 3 sections. So normally that's the lower end, the mid section of the lake, and the upper end. And depending on the time of year, the fish are going to bite differently in different sections of the lake. So on Lake Degray, where the water's super clear, the fish normally are in the wintertime, let's say, are going to get a lot deeper on the lower end of the lake than they will on the upper end of the lake, because the water's deeper, the water's clear. You guys probably already know that. So let me just start by looking at the bottom end of Lake Degray and talk you through some of the winter patterns I would use this time of year out there. So let's just kind of zoom in here to Lake Degray and show you what's going on. So as you can see, there's not a lot of shoreline cover open right now. The lake actually gets drawn down 3 or 4 feet in the wintertime, so there's not a lot of like bushes. There's not really very much riprap, so it's not going to be a shallow bite in the wintertime on Lake Degray. It's normally going to be an offshore fishery, and so normally when I'm looking through Google Earth, when I'm going to fish offshore, I normally want to look for these little humps and these ridges that are underwater or that are hard to see with your eyes when you're driving down the lake. So like you can see right here, here's a nice big island, and it's pretty obvious that that's an island. You could see it. But if we scroll over just to the right, there's a little bit of an underwater hump here that's kind of hard to see if you weren't using Google Earth. And these are the places that people are actually going to overlook. They're going to go straight to these steep island banks or out to these big main lake islands, and they're not going to hit these isolated offshore humps. And so let's take a look at Navionics now and show you what that looks like. Okay, so right now I just pulled up the Navionics web app, and if you guys want to follow along, I left the link down here in the bottom of the right below Fish the Moment, and it's webapp.navionics.com. So you can just type in Lake Degray into the search bar, and this tool is completely free to use. You can go on and look up pretty much every lake in the country. It has a ton of lakes as long as it's not super small or private. And so here we go. Let's just go down here and let's look at this little hump we were looking at. So see here, right around here. So you can see this is that spot I was looking at. Let me pull back up Google Earth real quick so you guys can see that. So this is Google Earth. You can see that there's a nice little underwater island right there, right here. And it's right off the tip between these two big points. And so if we go back to Navionics now, you can see, let's see here. See here, right here. So you can see that there's this same little underwater point, and this is actually one of my favorite spots on Lake Degray for fishing in the wintertime, and here's why. So if you look at this little spot, we have a nice main river channel that runs in here. We have like 180 feet of water, and so what these fish will a lot of times do is sit off in that super deep water, and it's actually really deep water on both sides of this hump, 70 or 80 feet right off both sides. And what will happen is that these fish will actually come up and they'll run up onto these shallow humps when the wind starts blowing or if you get a sunny day, and they'll set up on these little points here. So you have this point that sticks out, and there's standing timber down there, some rock. They'll set up on this little saddle. This comes up in here. You can see that there's a hump right here, and then there's a hump right here, and this is deeper water right down the center. And these fish like to get in this little saddle because what will happen is if the wind starts blowing through from the north or the south, all the bait and all the fish are going to kind of get pushed through that funnel, or at least it's probably like the plankton, not the actual bait, but the plankton will get pushed up through that funnel, and the shad will kind of get caught up in that little saddle, and fish will just oh, not showing the map. Thank you guys. Getting new to getting new to this software. Hopefully that's showing up now. I might do that a few more times, so sorry about that. Let me go through that one more time. So this is probably going to happen again, like I said, a couple times, but hopefully I get through it after this first lake. So let's get back to it. So like I was saying, this is that hump that was showing on Google Earth. And so the reason I like it, like I was talking through here, is that it has deep water on both sides of the hump. So right here we have about 180, 190 feet of water, super deep water on the south side of this island. And then we have about 70 or 80 feet of water on the north side. And so these fish will sit in this deep water when you have cold fronts or if it's really bad weather outside. And then once the wind starts blowing, maybe you get like a warm front or the sun comes out, they're going to move up onto this little island hump. And so like I was talking about when you guys couldn't see it, there's a nice little saddle right here, and this is one spot where I've caught a bunch of fish on Lake Degray. And what it is basically a little trench or a little ditch between these two little humps, and the fish just stack up in there when there's any kind of wind or when the water warms up. So that's the kind of type of spots I'm looking for on Lake Degray in the winter time on the lower end of the lake, trying to fish anywhere from like maybe 30 to 40 feet of water offshore. So let's move on back over to Google Earth, and let's head to the midsection of this lake. And let me transition. Okay, cool. So now we're back over here. So that was the lower end of the lake. Gray, this is my favorite section of the lake to fish. And normally when I'm fishing a new lake, I normally like to a little bit easier to catch in the middle third of any lake in the country for whatever reason, especially if there's clear water. A lot of times these super clear impoundments are kind of tough to fish when you have or these, like, when you have really clear water. The fish have you know, a really hard time sometimes committing to a bait if there's no wind or if there's not any sun. And so I normally like to set up in the midsection of the lake when I go to a new body of water. So let's see here. Let's go into Arley Moor. So this is an area of the lake called Arley Moor, and it's a big creek on Lake Degray, and it has a lot of deep water in it. The water clarity is anywhere from like 2 to 3 feet of water, which is right in my comfort zone. I don't like fishing super clear water. I like to fish just a little bit, water with just a little bit of a tint to it. And so one of my favorite spots on this lake actually is right off this little point right here. And I actually found this using Google Earth. I never would have thought to fish this without looking at Google Earth. And so there's actually a nice little white line over the top of it, so it's a little bit hard to see, but if you zoom in really tight here, you can see that there's this bank. It kind of comes and just works down normal, and then all of a sudden you see this little notch out of the bank. And I was looking at Google Earth one day and I was like, what is that little nub or that notch sticking out of the bank? And so I went over again to my Navionics, so let's switch back over to that. Okay, here we go. So we're going to go over to Arley Moor. And this is that same exact spot, that little bump in the bank. Let me go back over to Google Earth so you guys can get perspective. So here's Google Earth, and you can see that there's that little pocket I was just showing, and if we go back over to Navionics, that's that exact same spot. And so let's see here. This spot right here is a really great wintertime spot for me. I've caught, one time I caught 5 fish on 5 casts on Alabama rig that went 13 pounds off this spot. And the reason it's so good is because, as you can see here, there's the main river channel right here, and it runs kind of through this whole creek. And then there's a secondary creek channel that comes off of this main river channel, and it hugs back into the creek, and it's about 40 feet deep in the center of this creek channel. And then there's this little hump, or this little kind of point, but it's a subtle point. It's a point that not a lot of people are going to see. Even if you're just looking at Navionics, it's not super obvious. But what will happen is these fish will sit out in the middle of this creek channel, and when it gets a cold front, they'll just sit out there and suspend. And then there's actually 2 big brush piles off the end of this little bump off the bank, and they'll move up out of that creek channel into those brush piles when it gets really sunny or warm, and they'll just stack up in that spot. And there's a lot of places like this around Lake Degray. Let me go find another one for you real quick. There's another one I fish. It's let's see here. Get my bearings. Back in here. Okay. Here we go. So this is another one that I fish. It's the exact same setup. So you have the shallow little bump out of the bank. It's actually kind of like a point, but it's not a main lake point. It's like a secondary point, a little ridge. And there's this creek channel that kind of swings in around this little point, and these fish will set up right on the end of this point, and they'll get right on that point right there, and there's a little bit of rock down there, and you can just throw an Alabama rig or a football jig out into like 20-25 feet of water, and I catch a lot of big fish there as well. So that's kind of what I'm looking for on the midsections of the lake. On the lower end, again, I was out on like in the middle of the lake. I was fishing, you know, main lake islands, main lake drops, and I wasn't fishing anywhere near the bank. But when I get to the midsection of the lake, I like to fish a little bit closer to the bank. I like to kind of get back in the creeks a little bit and find deep water back in the creeks and find those subtle little humps and points that a lot of people are going to miss. Okay, so last up, let's talk about the upper end of Lake Degray, and I feel like I'm pretty warmed up. I might be talking a little bit quick. I'm a little bit nervous. To be honest, I don't know if I'm talking about the right stuff, or if I see the comments. This is good. This is great. So I'm really glad. So just let me know if there's anything else you guys want me to talk about. I'll check the comments every about 5 minutes. Just make sure I'm not like looking at the wrong screen or something too. But let me go up to the top end of Lake Degray. I'll finish this up, and then I'm going to go to the first subscriber lake, and that's when it's going to get really interesting. So let me pull back up Google Earth here. So Google Earth is back up. So let's go up to the north, the top end of Lake Degray. So top end of Lake Degray, this is a really cool part of the lake because it's really different from what you would normally expect in like a deep, clear reservoir. It's actually kind of sets up a lot like so a lot of lakes in Texas, actually, like a Sam Rayburn, like the north, kind of like the north end of Sam Rayburn up by the bridges up there, or let me think of another lake. Some of the Oklahoma lakes, like Grand, even though Grand's a little bit has more docks and things like that, it kind of sets up like the north end of Grand Lake a little bit. And I really like it. There's a lot of good fish. It's not the best in the wintertime, but as you get into January and February, it's a really good spot to fish. And the top end of these lakes, the northern ends, they're going to be a lot muddier, and they're going to be a lot more affected by rain in the wintertime. So like here in Arkansas, we've had a lot of rain over the past few weeks, and it's been a cold rain. So what's happening is that you're having like 30, 40 degree days and nights, and this rain is feeding into these creeks, and it's washing cold water into these creek arms and back into these bays. And so the fish back in these creeks are going to get really messed up because the water temp might go from 50, 55 degrees all of a sudden down to 40 degrees because you get this cold water coming into the lake. And on the lower end, it's not going to affect the fish that much because these fish are used to sitting out in the main part of the lake, and they're not really going to get affected by water coming into the creeks. So just watch out for that. If you're fishing on the top end of a lake, if there's a cold rain or even rain in general in the winter, I would watch out. There's one rule that Denny Browrose used to say. It was muddy, cooling water is the last place you want to fish on a lake. So if you have muddy water that has maybe 2 foot of visibility or less, and the water's temperature is dropping, get out of that area because the fish are not going to be in a good mood. So let me check the chat real quick too to make sure. Let's see here. Doing great. Awesome. That's good. Let's talk about a couple spots here then Arley Moore, and then we'll get to some subscribers. So one of my favorite little spots in Arley Moore actually is this little back pocket in here, and I really like it because it has 2 really sharp points. And I actually came back in here again because I looked at Google Earth and I was like, ooh, these points look really steep and sharp. And for whatever reason, in the pre-spawn, fish like to get on these really long, sharp points. I don't know why, but I think it's just because they can quickly move up to shallow water and move back down to deep water. But I seem to have a lot of success catching big fish on really sharp points as opposed to the rounded points, especially when you get into January and February. And so let's go over to Google, or let's go over to Navionics and see what this looks like on Navionics. So pull this up. Okay, so now we're up here. We're going to go up here to Shouse Ford. So here's the spot that we were just looking at. Let me pull up Google Earth again just so you can kind of see, get a perspective. So there's the pocket, and then here's the Navionics of that pocket. And so here's the reason I like this pocket so much. First off, you have this nice creek channel that runs all the way into the back of this pocket. But in the back, there's a lot of really flat water, and when fish are starting to stage for the spawn, they like to find areas that have a lot of flat water. It's just 1 or 2 foot of water for a long way, and they'll actually move up over these flats all the way in the back of these pockets. You can see there's a little creek channel in here. They'll kind of follow these creek channels, these little tiny ditches back in the back of these pockets, and what they'll do is they'll normally be sitting out in the middle of this bay or this pocket in the wintertime, and they'll just be suspended. I've gone up here a lot of times and just been able to catch them on a jigging spoon or an Alabama rig sometimes, but it's not as good as down in the clear water. But the best part about this spot is that it actually has these 2 sharp points like I was talking about, and there's a road bed that runs right across it. And you wouldn't be able to see that if you were using just Google Earth. And so if you look at Navionics now, there's a nice little road bed there, and let's see here. That road bed runs across both points, and these fish will actually set up on this part of the road bed and this part of the road bed in the spring. And one of my tricks we use out there, I actually learned it from fishing as a non-boater or a co-angler in a Mr. Bass tournament. We have a tournament trail we call Mr. Bass, and the guy, it was crazy, he put us up on the bank. Our boat was literally sitting on the bank, and this was in February. It was February 14th, about 4 or 5 years ago, and we were casting our Carolina rigs. We're throwing Carolina rigs, and we're sitting up on the bank, and we're casting out into the middle of this bay. So we're putting the boat on the bank, casting out to this road bed, and bringing the Carolina rig uphill, like up the drop. And we were catching fish like crazy. And I was freaking out because I was like, why are we sitting on the bank? Because like we literally took the motor and drove over the fish, parked the bank. He put the trolling motor on the bank to like hold us like a power pole kind of, and we were casting out into that road bed, and we were catching them. Really good ones. And so that's a trick we use here in Arkansas, and I did that in my last video. If you actually watched when I caught that walleye in my last video, you can see me sitting actually on the bank, and I was throwing a Carolina rig off the tip of this point on a grass line. And there's no grass on Degray anymore, but it was just fishing that road bed. So that's just another little spot, another little tip for y'all that you might like. Cool, so let me read through some of these comments, and then let's get to a subscribers lake. So let's see what you guys are saying. I've never learned so much about fishing in 10 minutes. Hopefully it sticks in my brain. Awesome. I appreciate that. I'm actually going to be posting this video onto YouTube, so if you guys want to go back and watch what I'm talking about, the video will be up in full on YouTube, and you can check it out there. Especially, I'm probably talking a little bit fast, or if I'm going to be talking about your home lake, maybe you aren't able to mark down all the spots. So the video will be up on YouTube on my channel right after the stream. Let's see here. Map's not showing. Perfect. Okay, let's see. How do I feel about the Insight Genesis? I saw that. So let's see here. I don't know a lot about the Insight Genesis. I've heard good things. I don't have a Hummingbird or a Lowrance. I have a Hummingbird, and I use the Lake Master maps, and I love Lake Master. I've heard that the Insight Genesis is similar, and basically it's just a more defined contour line map. And the reason I like my Lake Master map actually is because it has a few extra features that Navionics doesn't. You can highlight different parts of the water, and also when you get a different mapping chip, it's going to kind of present the spots a little bit different. For some reason, even on lakes where Navionics is really good, I'll find spots I've never seen before just because the contour lines look a little bit different or the coloring's different. I don't know what it is. So if you have the ability to invest in 2 mapping chips, or let's say you are thinking about investing in a mapping chip, one thing you might want to do is just get the Navionics phone app. You can get it. Let me pull up my phone here. You can get the app on your phone, and I've used this all the time when I go out in other friends' boats who don't have graphs or don't even have electronics, like if you're going in a flat bottom boat or something. And so you have the Navionics app that's actually on your phone, and I use this all the time when I'm just like sitting around like getting my hair cut or at the grocery store or something waiting in line. I'll just pull out this Navionics app, and it's like $10. You can get it on your phone, and it actually has GPS in there, so you can take it out in the lake and you can see exactly where your boat is. And so I found a lot of really good fish actually using Navionics on my phone out on offshore structure without a graph at all. So let's see here. Let's go down these comments. Okay, it looks like we're good. Okay, looks like we got all the comments covered, at least for now. So next up, I want to go through one of the subscribers' lakes. And the first lake we're going to look through, let me get over to Google Earth here. First lake we're going to look through is Cedar Creek Lake. and this is a lake in Kentucky, and it was submitted by Matt Fields, and this is a 784 acre impoundment in Kentucky, and it's a man-made reservoir, and it's actually a trophy bass fishery, so it has a lot of big bass, and it's been stocked with big bass, and we have a few lakes like that around here in Arkansas too, so I'm excited to kind of take a look at this lake. I haven't really spent too much time looking at any of the subscribers' lakes yet. This is a no personal watercraft lake, so basically no ski boats or party barges or anything can go on this lake, so it's 100% just a fishing lake, which sounds like paradise. I was reading an article that Matt sent me, and it said it has a ton of artificial cover, rock piles, brush piles, there's road beds, there's submerged ponds. Before the lake was flooded, there was a lot of roads and stuff going through this area, and I looked at the temperature in the area around this lake in Crab Orchard, Kentucky, and it looks like the temperatures are pretty cold right now, similar to what they are in Arkansas, anywhere from a high of like 35 to 45, lows dipping in the 20s, but it shouldn't be frozen over, so we're going to talk through some winter patterns, especially when the fishing is super cold. Maybe we can help Matt find a few fish on this lake. Okay, so first off, let's see here, let me go through. Okay, so let's look at this lake. So first thing I'm going to do, and I always do this when I go to the lake, I go up to the top corner of Google Earth. If you don't have Google Earth, just download it. It's free online. Just type in Google Earth, download. Don't click the first link. It's normally an ad, and you'll download a virus. I did that before, and it was not good. I had to take my computer in and get it like completely cleaned up. So make sure it's an official Google Earth link. Anyways, what you can do is you can go up to this little clock, and it says, if you click on this clock, it says rewind time, or look at show historical imagery, use a time slider to move between acquisition dates. So this is 2018. This picture is taken actually 2016. So this picture is taken 2016. But if we go back, you can click on this little sliding bar, and you can actually go back to when the lake was before it was built, which is really, really cool, before it was actually flooded. So you can see this is Cedar Creek Lake, but there's no water there, so it's just like roads, and you can see there's like a bridge right here, and there's all these little creeks and stuff running through, and there's another little road with a bridge. So it's really cool. You can actually go back and like find these historical images, and if your lake was impounded or flooded after like 1985 or so, normally you'll have these aerial footage of the lake before it was impounded. So one thing I would do if I was Matt is I would actually go in and I would find all these like little intersections of the creeks, places bass would live. Like right here, there's an intersection of a creek. I would go in and you can click on this little drop pin up in the top, and I'm just going to move that right onto the point, the intersection of those two creeks. I'm going to press OK. This is my first map, and then there was there's another little bridge right here. Maybe we want to fish that bridge, and so I'm going to drop this little point on the bridge, and then hit OK. And then what I'm going to do is I have those 2 points, and I'm actually going to zoom ahead now back to 2016. Boom. Right there. There's that bridge. There's that creek intersection. So what Matt can do then is he can take the waypoint. It actually has the coordinates for these pins, and you can go and you can put that in your GPS and go fish the exact little spot right there where those creeks intersect. So that's just one thing I wanted to show you right away before we got into looking at the lake at all. That's an easy way to find some good looking water on Cedar Creek Lake. And so let's just kind of take a look, overview from top to bottom what this lake looks like. Okay, so first off, start here by the dam. Looks like this is the dam where the water is kind of, it looks like it might be like a drinking water lake or like a flood overflow lake, and so there's your little flood thing here, and it looks like it's pretty clear on the lower end of the lake, even though it's on the north. I always call the lower end of the lake the place with the cleanest water, so don't get confused there, but it looks like the lake's pretty clear on the lower end, maybe 3 or 4 feet visibility. Looks like we have some standing timber, some really good like bushes, and looks like some offshore standing timber, which is awesome. That's a really good cover for bass. We have a little bit of a riprap bank here, which is really good certain times of the year. Again, more guys, look at that. That looks so good. There's like trees. This looks like bass fishing paradise. Like private, or it's not a private lake, but it's like a trophy stocked lake with no personal watercrafts and just trees as far as the eye can see. This is prime water right here. So a lot more, you know, bushes and things like that. And I'm sure that this stuff gets just fished like crazy. There's actually a lake that I fished in a few of my videos actually. Last summer I fished it, and it's called Brewer Lake in Arkansas, and it's similar. It has Florida strain largemouth in there. I caught my personal best out there. It was an 8.5 pounder. Tons of 7, 8, 9, 10 pound bass in that lake, and it's a public body of water, and it has tons of flooded shoreline cover, bushes everywhere, and it looks pretty similar to this lake actually. It has it was flooded about 30 years ago, and so it has underwater road beds. It has a graveyard. It has multiple house foundations down there. So really cool lake. So it reminds me a lot of this lake actually. And one thing people always do on these lakes is they'll just go flip down the bank all day, and you can catch good fish doing that. You can catch maybe 15, 20 pounds of bass doing that, and I mean that's not anything to laugh at, and makes a really fun day. But if you get offshore a little bit on these trophy bass lakes, you might find something like this right here. This looks like a little pond levee right here. You just look at it from Google Earth, and that looks like a little pond levee. And that's the type of place that people aren't going to fish as often. You can see there's these nice, great looking trees over here, and there's no trees down this bank. So people are just going to make a beeline for these trees in this bank. They're going to completely ignore this nice little pond levee. And this might not be a great spot in the wintertime, but some point over the course of the year, maybe in the fall or like pre-spawn, that spot's going to be on fire. Let's take a look further down here. Right here, you can actually see there's a road bed right here. If you look at this, you can see that this there's a little bit like a path, and it cuts in. I don't know if this is the road right here or this is the road. One of the two is actually a road bed, and it looks like it starts right here. Yep, it starts right here, and it comes off this road, comes into the water, and then it comes out over here. Let me reposition this. It comes out over here, and it probably shoots right across, or no, right here. It shoots right into this road right here. So that road cuts directly across that lake. I bet that this timber right here is great because it has that nice hard bottom by it, created by that road. Those fish will use that road kind of like a highway, like we do with our cars, and they'll move up and down that highway into those bushes. Then maybe they'll move down this road off shore, sit out here in the middle. If there's a creek that runs underneath it, normally you'll find a bridge. If you think about it, when you're driving down the road, bridges are always over low points where there's a river or like a drop, and so it's the same thing when the lake's flooded. Those bridges are going to be right where the creek channels are, where a road intersects a creek channel. So that's going to be a great spot, great road bed right there, and you can find that again just using Google Earth. You don't need Navionics, you don't need anything special. You have free software, and we've already found a pond levee, some amazing brush, and one road bed in 4 minutes. And I've never looked at this lake before, so it's not too hard as long as you are paying attention to find stuff. Just keep looking around. We got some dirtier water, some shallow bays. We have a nice timber line back here. As you look here, there's like a row of timber, and I don't know what is causing that, but it looks like kind of almost an old fence line or something. I don't even know, but there's some water in behind it, and I bet these isolated trees out here are great in the spawn. They're gonna set up on that little line of trees, and normally if you find some place like that, especially on like Lake Brewer where I fish, there's a lot of spots like this that have like a line of trees. They're separated from the bank a little bit. Those can be money for like a 7-8 pound bass. Let's see, going back in here, just a lot of flooded brush, just a lot of good looking stuff. Another little like timber line, something along those lines. I'm not really sure exactly what that is, but you can kind of see there's something here. Maybe it's another pond levee, who knows. Let me check chat real quick. Okay, Beaver Lake. I'm definitely gonna do Beaver Lake. It's awesome. Let's see here. Okay, so I'm getting a ton of suggestions. If you guys are wanting me to do your lake again, I don't know if you were here at the beginning, but just email me down in the right corner here. It says email me at fishthemoment1@gmail.com. Tell me the lake name, the state, the county, the water clarity, the water temp, and also what type of fish are in there, if there's smallmouth or largemouth or spots, whatever there is. And make sure it has a Navionics map to it. All the lakes I'm looking at today have Navionics, and you can check that on the Navionics web app, and I have the address right here, web app. .navionics.com. That's underneath the fish at the moment there. I don't know if you can see my cursor, but either way, that's how you can submit your lakes, and I'll go through the ones in the chat here too as well, so you can post them here, and if there's ones I'm familiar with, I'll add them to the list. And I don't know how long these streams are going to be either. Like, I could talk for literally 15 hours, like stay up all day talking about fish and stuff. I love this. And so if you guys want me to do like a 2-hour stream, a 3-hour stream, I don't know if that's going to get boring or too long, or I know you guys have other things to do other than watch me talk about lakes all day, but just let me know. So let's see here. Appreciate the comment, Jonathan. Put a lot of effort. I did. I try to put as much effort as I can in my videos for y'all. I try to make them informative. I try to make them something you guys can use as a tool, and also entertaining. I don't want you to just put out a video with a bunch of Navionics maps and talk about that for 15 minutes, 'cause that would bore anybody to tears. It might be really useful information, but it's gonna be boring. So I try to bring in some fish catches, make it entertaining. So I'm glad y'all are enjoying that though. But let me get back to looking at this lake. So Matt just spent that time looking through your lake. I already found a few spots. There's a lot more to look through if you go back to this old aerial footage. So go check that out, because that's going to be key. You're going to find some great offshore structure with that. And with that in mind, let's get to Navionics now. Okay, so we're still on Degray. Let me pull up Navionics on Cedar Creek Lake. Here we go. So this is Cedar Creek. It has Navionics. Let's just take a look through this Cedar Creek. So this lake has a great Navionics map. It has aerial footage. It has like old aerial footage. It has great trophy largemouth. I need to get to this lake. This lake looks like the fisherman's paradise. So let's go through this Navionics. This is getting me excited. First off, let's talk about some patterns for the winter time, and then I'll also just talk about some other stuff that we can go through for times the season too. But first off, in the winter time, on these type of lakes, especially like on Brewer Lake, which is like I fish a lot, the fish are pretty finicky on these trophy bass lakes. A lot of times the bass in these trophy bass lakes are Florida strain largemouth, and Florida strain largemouth are super sensitive to cold fronts. Whenever you get a cold front or water temperature drops, or even a north wind, even if the water temperature doesn't drop that much, if you get a north wind, the fish will almost completely shut down and they won't bite. So be watching out for that on these type of lakes. I've had days on Brewer Lake where I'll go out one day with a south wind and it'll be nice and warm, and I'll catch 25 pounds. Next day it'll be post front, cold front came through, and I won't catch a single fish in 10 hours of fishing. So just be careful with that, because that can kind of burst your bubble on a fishing day. But let's see here. Let's see. So one thing I really like about this lake is that it has 50 feet of water on the lower end. So this lower end, especially with that cleaner water, is going to be really conducive to some winter jerkbait fishing. So Matt, what I would do is, if I was going to come out to this lake, first thing I would probably start out looking is I would graph over some of these points. And if you don't have electronics on your boat, or if it's like if it's a lake that doesn't allow big outboards or whatever, I would just kind of hit some of these key points. You can see here's a really steep drop off this. It goes from no water down to 50 foot. It's a nice sharp drop. All those contour lines being close together means that the drop is super sharp. And fish like that in the wintertime, because they'll sit off in this deep water during the cold front. And then when it warms up, you get the wind, you get the sun, they'll move up super shallow. I'm talking like a foot of water sometimes. So you can catch them either on jerkbait, sometimes even on a rattle trap down on these lower end. If we go back over to Google Earth too, if we look at this point, you can see that there's a little bit of brush and cover down on this point. And so I found times, especially even in January, where you can catch fish flipping. If you get a nice warm day, if it gets up to like 50, 55 degrees. A lot of these big lakes, I've caught fish on Brewer Lake in January on a spinnerbait in 2 feet of water. I caught a 5-pounder in 2 feet of water on a spinnerbait because we had a lot of wind. It was like 15-mile-an-hour winds, and the water temp, or the air temps, were like 55, 60 degrees in January. So in Kentucky, I'm sure you have warm days like that too. So don't be afraid to get up really shallow in the winter. But most of the time, that's not going to be the day you're going to be fishing. That's almost too ideal, the perfect lake with the perfect weather. But one thing that I will say is that, okay, you do have electronics. Awesome. That's perfect, Matt. So, let's see here. So we have this little point. It's a great little drop. If you have electronics, I'll graph over it and see if there's any bait fish around there. If you do have a lot of bait fish in that area, then it's going to be a great spot for a jerkbait, Alabama rig. This point right here off this boat ramp looks really good. It's, again, a nice sharp drop really close to the shore. I also saw some riprap there, and if you get riprap or any kind of chunk rock, you can catch them on a flat side crankbait really well this time of year. Check out all my videos from last winter on that flat side KVD 1.5 flat. I was crushing them last year on that. Check that out. For the jerkbait, if you guys want a video on jerkbait fishing, I got one from Lake Dardanelle last year. It's like how to fish jerkbaits for winter bass. And I was throwing a little Lucky Craft pointer, and I caught a 6 and a 7 that day. So that was a really good day of fishing. So check that video out. I get a little bit excited. I'm excited right now, but I'm way more excited in that video. So definitely check that out. So again, great little point here for jerkbait. Great little point here. Another little good bank here. A lot of places I fish in the wintertime are, I try to find places that are close to spawning areas. Normally in the winter, people think the fish will get out kind of like where they sit in the summer, off on offshore ledges and our main lake creek channels, and they do. There's fish that always live out there, like the resident fish. I think a lot of fish even like live out there their whole lives, a lot of the bigger fish. But there's always a group of fish that move into the back of the creeks to spawn, then move back out. And a lot of the good places in the wintertime are these points leading into spawning pockets, especially main lake points leading to spawning pockets. So like here's a nice main lake point. This looks like prime jerkbait water right here, steep drop in 40 foot. Right up here to this point. So this looks just killer. This spot right here, again, this point right here, anywhere where you can kind of see a trend here. Anywhere I see really sharp contour lines, dark group of lines next to the bank, that's a good jerkbait water for me. It's going to have ability for those fish to move from deep water up to shallow water really quick, and I always throw jerkbaits on these type of areas, and even if I don't see bait, I'll just go run them. And this time of year when you're fishing a jerkbait, guys, don't work it very fast. I would throw it out and let it sit for like 7, 8, 9 seconds. And I know that sounds awful, and I'm pretty OCD. I feel like I like to move around, cover a bunch of water, and fish fast. But when you fish that jerkbait, you just have to let it sit forever. And I love that jerkbait technique, because you'll let it sit there for 10 seconds, 8 seconds, whatever, and then all of a sudden that rod will load up and it'll be a big one. So just work those jerkbaits slow and you're going to get some big bites. So that's kind of some jerkbait water on the lower end. I'm seeing, just coming back in here, there's again a lot of good little like turns. This spot looks really good. It has like shallow water here, and then this like little creek channel turn. I love that. I don't know, let's get back over to Google Earth and see what that looks like. So that's right here. Yeah, I like this a lot. So it has, you can actually see kind of what's happening here. So the creek runs into this bank. That's that same point I was just looking at, and there's some timber. This is real shallow water, this is real shallow water, and then this is really steep right here. There's some trees kind of off. You can see a few trees, and it looks like a spot where you can maybe even take like a big 3/4 ounce football head jig, cast it up into those trees, and just kind of work it slow off the bank. Put your boat in like 40 foot of water. It looked like there was some deep water. Let's go back over to Navionics and see. Yeah, it looks like there's 20, 26, 27 feet of water. I try to put my boat in like 30 and cast up right up to the shore there, and just work it back nice and slow. That can probably be a pretty good way to catch some fish. And then as far as other winter spots, this right here is where that roadbed comes through, and I would definitely check out roadbeds. Roadbeds are really good for winter fishing. I would say that behind maybe fishing like a riprap bank, I'd say roadbeds are my second biggest producers of winter bass for numbers and size. And the fish, again, are going to get where those bridges are. If you can find a place with a bridge or a culvert, if you have side scan, that's awesome. If you have the aerial footage like Matt does, where you can take the lake back before it was flooded, find those bridges. Another great resource for this is actually looking at old paper maps. A lot of people don't use paper maps at all anymore. I don't know why, but paper maps are great. They show all the roads and the bridges and stuff, and that's how I find a lot of my good water, especially like when I went to Sam Rayburn to fish a college tournament. Some other lakes, I fished a tournament on Lake, what's it called? Monticello in South Carolina, and that was for a junior tournament. And I found a roadbed with a bridge on this paper map, and actually led the first day of the junior world finals fishing that roadbed. Never fished it before in my life. Just went out there and was like, I want to fish this bridge. I don't know how it worked out. I was catching them on drop shot and just catching them like crazy off this whole bridge I just found on an old topo map. So yeah. So let's look at the comments real quick, and then we'll get back to this lake. Okay, yes, I can see the comments, everyone. I am just getting really into the talking and not as much into the interaction, so I apologize. Let me scroll up here. So thank you, John Bolton, for the donation. Really appreciated. I'm just doing this for fun for y'all, so I put a lot of hours in this, so anything, I'm not going to say you need to donate by any means, but if you are, then that'd be great. Just helps me make more content, help me put out stuff, gas up the boat, things like that. Right now I'm getting my MBA, I'm in college, and so I'm just making these videos whenever I have a free moment from working. I'm working part-time and doing the MBA, and so my time during like the school year is really tight, so I don't make a lot of videos during the school year, and so that's why I hadn't posted pretty much all fall. But whenever I get breaks like this, I try to push out as much content as I can, because it really is fun to do. Also, 55 people watching right now. That's crazy. My first stream and there's 55 people watching this video. That's so cool. Thank you guys. Thank you for the support too. This channel, just to kind of give you an idea, this channel was at 900 subscribers when I came home for break at the beginning of December. Now we're up to almost 1,500 subscribers, which is massive growth just over the winter. And it's great to see you guys enjoying the content, and really my goal again is to help people find more fish and catch more fish, and this is information that I've always wanted on the internet. A lot of people are really secretive about where they fish, the spots they fish, things like that. They don't really want to give away their areas, and I always was frustrated when I was growing up. When I was a kid, I always had trouble figuring out what the best areas were, because no one would ever tell me exactly where they're fishing. And so with my videos, I try to show you the exact spot I'm fishing using the flyover with Google Earth, so you see what part of the lake I'm in, show you diagrams, lake maps, everything, so you guys can get the best idea of where I'm fishing and hopefully duplicate it on your lake. Let's see here. What's up? John again, what's up? Let's see here. This is Barren River Lake in Kentucky. Let's see here. I'm seeing people kind of talking about the same lake, so I'll take note of the lakes that are popping up more than once, and I'll make sure to talk about those on future streams for sure. Thank you to Fishing Vids. Great content there, guys. Check him out as well. He's been a really good supporter and helped me out, so yeah, check out his videos. Let's see here. Keep going. Yeah, I can see the comments. Again, thanks, John. Much appreciated. Lake Grapevine, I'll definitely talk about Grapevine. That lake looks awesome. I saw a TV show on that a while back. That lake looks really good. Let's see here. How do you donate? I have no idea, honestly. I really probably should be on the ball on this. I think you can do this little like super chat on the bottom of the chat. There's like a smiley face, and there's a super chat. I think that's what John's saying. So thanks again, John. John's been super great on this chat. Thank you. Ryan, good to see you here. South Texas Bassin, good to see you. I'm seeing a lot of familiar faces, a lot of familiar names on here. Again, thanks for checking out the videos, guys. I'm not calling everyone's comments out, so sorry. I'm just trying to go through as many as I can. What degree are you seeking? Ryan asks. I'm actually getting my marketing concentration for my MBA. I got my undergrad in economics, so yeah. So anyways, emailed about Lake Somerville. Awesome. Okay, let's get back to it. That's enough going through the comments. Let's see here. Colton, thank you. Appreciate it. Appreciate the comments. Okay, so let's go through these lakes. So Actually, I'm probably going to stop here on Cedar Creek. I see we're already been going for like 45 minutes, which is crazy. This has felt like it's gone by like that. Matt, hopefully that helped on this lake. I didn't get to go through it super detailed, not as much as I would if I was preparing for the tournament, but hopefully you got some ideas for that. So next lake up, let's see here. Let's go to Google Earth again. So next lake is Lake Glendening. And Lake Glendening is a lake in Ohio, and it was submitted by All Water. That's his Instagram name. It's Nathan S. And he just sent me a message on Instagram, wanted me to take a look at his lake. And this is another really good looking lake. It's a flood control lake in Ohio. It has both largemouth and smallmouth, and the reports online were saying that the largemouth fishing is excellent, so looks like it's a good lake. This lake has a 10 horsepower limit on it, so it's one of the smaller lakes, which is what a lot of people are fishing. So I'm glad a lot of lakes I fish are like these big giant reservoirs, and so sometimes they might not be exactly what you guys are fishing. So I'm glad we're looking at some smaller reservoirs here. And right now Ohio's frozen. It's super cold there. So I'm going to not really talk about like winter tactics, because that would be ice fishing, and I'm not really a big ice fisherman. Last time I went ice fishing, I had to go to the ER. Don't want to get in that story, but auger, don't want to get into it. But anyways, let's go through Lake Glendening though. I'm going to talk about maybe once the lake thaws over and we get some open water, maybe in like March, April, probably April. Just a idea here too. Let's see here. Oh, thank you, Gabe. Really appreciate that. Thank you, Bass Quest. A lot of people are talking about getting out and fishing too. And one thing I was thinking about doing, which I don't know if this would be feasible or whatever, but over the summer I might have some time after I finish my MBA, and maybe trying to get like a subscriber tournament or something where we could meet up at like a lake, or maybe do a couple of them, because I want to try to travel a little bit. Maybe not super far, like way up north, but anywhere within like 3, 4, or 5 hours of Arkansas. Maybe we could try to have some people meet up, and we could have like a mini tournament, and you guys can all kick my butt at fishing. Either way, let's go to back to this lake. So Lake Glendening. So yeah, like I said, I'm going to talk about this lake as far as when it would thaw out, so March and April. And I actually grew up in Wisconsin, and so I have a lot of experience fishing in northern lakes. That's where I learned to grow up to fish. So I should have pretty good information on these lakes. Even though I fish in Arkansas, I should be able to help you guys out a little bit on these northern lakes. Lake Glendening, let's take a look here. It looks kind of muddy, actually. It looks not super clear. It has a little dam here, which is good. Probably some deep water. It looks like it's kind of one of those lakes where it's just like a river system. It's one big, long lake that probably has one depth throughout. And there's a lot of lakes, kind of like Finger Lakes and stuff in Wisconsin like that, actually. Let's see here. There's a nice road here, probably some riprap here that could be really good. We'll have to check the avionics to see if there's any deep water around this. But anytime I see a road and I'm fishing in cold water conditions, so I guess this would be April and March and April for Nathan here, I want to check rock. Rock holds heat. Whenever you get sun, that sun's going to heat up those rocks, and it's going to hold heat, and fish are just going to be drawn to that. And even if the rocks are shallow, like I'm talking like a foot or two of water, and they're not even close to deep water, sometimes a fish will sit up on them. It's best if they have deep water close by, but I always check rock, any type of riprap or chunk rock, especially if the lake doesn't have a lot of rock in it. Always check that stuff. This creek back here probably looks pretty shallow, so we might see something better on Navionics, but one thing I want to talk about. So when you're fishing on these lakes, it looks like this is a flood control lake, so it looks like there's going to be some current that's running through these lakes. And whenever you get current on any lake in the pre-spawn or in like the winter time, I always try to get away from current as much as I can. What happens is these fish are going to try to move up to spawn, and they don't want to spawn around current that much. Even like on the Coosa River, like Coosa River spotted bass, they'll spawn on the main river in the current, but they'll try to get behind like big trees or something to get out of the current and lay their eggs so that they don't get swept up out of the current. And so what happens is the current will actually come in and it'll wash through this lake. Let's just come from the dam, it'll wash through here, and then just kind of imagine if you were pushing water through this lake, it'll come to the outside bend of the river, it's going to cut back in here, and it's going to kind of push up against this bank and then get pushed back down the river. So it's going to kind of give this kind of current, motion here. And so the places that are going to have slack water where there's no current are going to be the inside bends of all these river channels. So one spot that looks good right away when you're coming down this lake is this bank right here. It's going to hopefully get some extra sunlight because the sun's rising in the east over here, and so it's going to get some bright sun, and that's going to warm up the water. You're going to have some current whipping through here, but it's going to kind of push this way, and this little bank is going to be protected from the current. And so if there's smallmouth in this lake, these smallmouth are going to set up on this inside turn. They might set up on this little point here as well. That could be good. Current's going to keep whipping through here. This little pocket right here is going to be really good. It'll be protected from that current. It's going against the current east going to get the sun first here on the rising in the east. I hope I'm getting that right. Maybe I'm getting that wrong. I don't really know. Maybe we should check the comments, make sure people aren't. Awesome. Okay, Classic Top 40 Radio, thank you for the donation, $10. Thank you so much, guys. I really do appreciate it. Look up Gunnersville. I will do Gunnersville. Gunnersville is amazing. I love Gunnersville. I've never fished out there, but it's, one on the bucket list. Let's see here. Bet you'll find the fish before we do. Thanks, John. Let's see here. Current moving the other way. Okay, so currents can move the other way. So thank you, Ryan. Appreciate that. Yeah, because we're looking this way. So yeah, it's going to be going down the lake. So I guess this is the bank that's going to be protected by the current. Thanks for the call out. Definitely not perfect out here, guys. So I do appreciate if you correct anything I say. Hopefully the logic makes sense, even if the execution isn't there. Current's going to be pulling then this way. So this is going to be the bank. The current's going to push this way, cut through here, and then back down. So this is going to be the bank that's protected. It doesn't have the sun on it, but it's still going to be a good bank to check out. This is going to be a good pocket right here. Regardless of the way the current goes, it's going to be protected from the current. Again, all these like north-facing pockets are always really good for spawning in the spring. They're going to kind of hold in some of that warm water, especially when you get a north wind, and the fish are going to like that on cold front days. There's a lot of really good points. This is kind of like, it looks like I kind of need to get some navionics for, just to kind of get a better idea of what's happening. Ooh, look down here though. This is very interesting. I like that little lily pad patch right there. I think that's lily pads. Could be cane, but it looks like lily pads. And lily pads in the springtime are always dynamite for largemouth. It looks like there's not very much of them either. Maybe just down this bank right here. And so that's going to be a killer spot for largemouth, especially moving up into April. If the lily pads aren't there yet, after they like die out in the winter, the lily pad stems will still be down there, and fish love to spawn around lily pad stems because they're going to have harder bottom underneath the stems. And I've caught some giant fish on lily pad stems in the springtime. And one video I actually really want to make for you guys that I wasn't able to do this year is that, let's see, one thing I did get to do this year is a couple years back on Lake Dardanelle, I caught some fish in lily pad stems in 3 feet of water throwing an Alabama rig. I was literally throwing 5-inch swim baits, just rigged up on a weightless hook, casting the Alabama rig into the lily pad stems, and I was catching, I think, I caught 19 pounds that tournament with a 14-incher, jumped to 6. The guy who won the tournament caught 28 pounds, caught a 9-pounder, and he was fishing fourth or fifth place in that tournament, and I had 19 pounds, and it was all in the Alabama rig. So let's see here. I bet this fish, like fishes like Hudson, Oklahoma. I kind of agree with you there, Ryan. That sounds similar Lake Hudson. If you've seen my videos out there, I look great with my hands doing this. I don't know what I'm doing. Uh, anyways, let's get over to Navionics here. Okay, transitioned over to Navionics. So Lake Glendening, Ohio. So let's see here. So we have this nice dam area, 30 feet of water. So it's not super deep lake, but definitely has some good good depth to it. Looks like there's some deep water coming around this area. This is where that riprap was, if you guys remember. There's that road right here, and there's a really steep bank actually right here. And so Nathan, if you're going to be fishing out here in like March or April in lake thaws, I would definitely check out this riprap, especially if you get like 4 or 5 sunny days in a row. I don't even know if I can't tell if there is riprap for sure, but if there's rock down this bank, I would definitely check that out. Throw like I really like a tube that time of year actually up north. So throw like a green pumpkin tube with a rattle in it and just work it down that riprap super slow. Just drag it super slow. You can catch them also on crankbait, obviously, shaky head, stuff like that. Works really well. This is a nice little steep bank leading into this little pocket. This could be a great little spot. This whole creek arm is actually going to be, I guess there would be current pulling down this creek arm as well. And so this little pocket's going to be protected from that current, and the current's actually going to be pushing directly onto this point. So this is a little bit steeper bank, and there could be some good stuff kind of piled up right on this, like maybe some shell or something piled up on this bank. That current's going to wash up onto that bank, and there's going to be some shell getting pushed up on there. So that could be a good bank to check out in the spring. All these flat banks, I bet you can catch fish on them, especially like there's this road bed right here. You might be able to catch fish on like some of these isolated stuff on road beds, but I don't know. I'm not a big fan of fishing just flat bank because it's hard to pattern those places because you can't really tell. Like if I caught a fish on this one flat bank, do I go to another flat bank? But there's all kinds of flat banks. So I like to look for stuff that's different, like this whole pocket here that kind of breaks up the contour lines, and you can kind of pattern that around the lake. Let's see here. So this pocket, again, just talked about it. That could be spot. Let's find some better water though. Okay, right here. So this right here, Nathan, looks like a great spot for pre-spawn bass in March. So you have a road, you have a submerged bridge, and it's right in front of this pocket right here. So the fish are going to spawn in this pocket, and I'm sure that there's probably, if there is a bridge down there, sometimes avionics is weird and they just aren't, like bridges aren't there. I don't really know what happens with that, but let's see here. This bridge is going to be right in the mouth of this pocket, and these fish will set up on that bridge. It looks like it's in like 22 feet of water, and so you can catch fish on Alabama rigs, you can catch fish on football jigs, deep diving crankbaits like a Striking 6XD could be a really good bait, especially as you get into like March when the water's in like maybe up in the 50-degree range. Let's keep going down here. It looks like there's a lot of like little road and creek beds and stuff. I'm really liking all this stuff. This point right here looks really good. So it's only about 19 feet deep off the side of it, but since the deepest part of the water looks like it's only about 30-35 feet, this could be a pretty good point for both smallmouth and largemouth. And again, it's leading into this spawning pocket. But this point right here would be great for like a jerkbait, Alabama rig, or like a jig. And let's keep going. Again, this bank is really good. It's a nice steep bank. This creek channel, if you look at this here, you can see this creek channel swings right up against that bank. That is a perfect spot to catch fish in the wintertime. Just throw a jerkbait down the side of that point, and you're going to be able to hopefully catch some fish there. Looks like a great spot to me at least. Keep going down here. Got another creek. One thing that's kind of tricky about smallmouth fisheries too is that sometimes smallmouth just kind of get out and roam on like big flat water. They don't actually get out on like the bank. They'll just sit out and kind of roam on big flats. And this lake doesn't look like it has a bunch of flats on it, but maybe back in like some of these pockets and creeks in here, if there's any sand with some grass back up in this pocket, these fish could get on these little isolated clumps of grass just in the middle of the creeks. And I've caught some fish doing that before up in Wisconsin, where it's not really I don't know. It's not really like an easy pattern to develop because there's not anything specific you're looking for other than like the grass. But I would check out to see if like side scan or with your 2D sonar if there's any grass in these pockets because those fish will sit right out in the middle of them. This looks like a great point right here. This says a nice deep water. The creek channel swings right up against it, right there. And it looks like it's pretty sharp, so I would check all the places where the creek channel swings into a point. Those are always good spots in the wintertime. Let's keep going here. We got some boat docks, and these boat docks, these boat slips can be really good if you can fish around them. A lot of times in the north you can't, but if you can, those can be really good with like a jig or a shaky head just off in these boat slips. And that's a really big pattern here on a lot of the Ozark lakes is fishing these boat slips. You saw Casey Ashley won a bunch of tournaments out on what's that lake called? It's in South Carolina where he won the Classic. I don't know why I'm blanking on this lake. Maybe someone will link it up. But he was catching them off brush in the middle of these docks, off the end of these docks. And so that's a really good pattern. Here's another good little point. It has a creek or a roadbed running across it with a creek channel running right up on it. It's kind of blurred out. I can't really see it super well. I don't know if y'all are seeing it, but there's a creek channel that runs in here with a roadbed and then this point. That's three amazing pieces of cover that when they come together are going to definitely hold some fish. This looks like a largemouth spot. One of the spots I fish on Greer's Ferry Lake in Arkansas looks just like this. It's a shallow point. Creek channel runs in with a roadbed, so check that out. And then, a little road with some bridge. This bridge could be killer if you throw a little shaky head, the jig, Alabama rig. If you check out my Alabama rig video I just made, you saw me catching them really well on the Alabama rig around bridges. Paul Elias obviously does well doing that too when he won at Gunnersville, another bridge. So this looks like it's shallowing up here. I don't really know. It's kind of hard to tell on these shallow parts of the lake, like 5-6 foot. Might be some largemouth sitting up here. A lot of times, if you get into these lakes that have like these little creeks that run back in the shallow water, the fish will set up on these creeks. They'll sit in the middle of this creek all winter, and they'll be resident fish. They'll live in this part of the lake, live in this creek, and so you can fish these little creeks and actually put your boat. Like what I do is I would actually drive down the lake, mark them on your GPS, and mark the whole creek bed all the way back into the back. So set a mark here, 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 so you can follow that creek. And then just fish like a rattle trap or a chatterbait or something down in the center of that ditch really slow. And a lot of times you can catch some big fish doing that. I know I do that a lot on some of the dirtier lakes, like Lake Dardanelle and places like that up here in Arkansas. So awesome. So let me get back over to the chat here. I missed a bunch of stuff. So let me get back to you guys real quick. Okay, so let's see here. Okay, just trying to get through here, through all this. What's my experience like on Florida lakes? John Bolton asks. I don't have any experience on Florida lakes. I watch as many shows on Florida fishing as possible because I know when I go there one day it's going to kick my butt and I want to have as much information as I can. There's a lot of major league fishing shows out there. The Bass has fished there for years. FLW, there's a ton of tournaments from like 1997 through 2005 where FLW fished Toho and Harris Chain, places like that all the time. And from what I hear, it's just mainly about getting into areas with clean water. Jacob Wheeler, one of the FLW pros, he's a good friend of mine, and he was saying the first time he went to Florida, he got screwed up because he tried to get off on his own and fish like new water and get away from the crowds. And he said that it screwed him up because the crowds are all going to congregate to the clean water where all the fish are, like community holes. And it's just hard to find areas outside of those like community holes that have the good water in it, that have fish. Sometimes you can find them, but he said to me, if I'm going to fish Florida, just get in the community holes, find areas with clean water, with hard bottom. You're going to be fishing around like lily pad stems, canes, flipping big like 1.5 ounce weight. One thing that's kind of sneaky that they do out on Florida is fish those shell beds. That's something that I love to do here in Arkansas on Lake Dardanelle and the Arkansas River. And they'll fish rattle traps on shell beds and throw a 10-inch worm and stuff. And they catch big fish doing that. So normally that's like between two islands where the water's rushing through the islands and stuff like that. So they really like to get on those. BG Fishing, thank you. Thank you for watching all the videos. Bass Quest, thank you for the donation. Really appreciate it. Let's see here. New Mexico. I've seen Matthew Holly here. I live in Mexico. A lot of information here. Looking to apply to Western Lakes. Awesome. I don't have any experience on Western Lakes. That's one thing that I definitely would love to learn. I know those lakes are super pressured, super small, and super different from what we fish out here east. And so maybe I can apply something. I don't know if I have the expertise to talk about those lakes as much, but maybe, bass are bass. They're probably going to behave similar here in the east as they do in the west, even if it's a little bit different fishing. So again, hopefully it's helpful. So I'm glad you're picking up something from it. Cameron, thanks for the email. Can you like that? A lot of Somerville emailed. Yep, Dardanelle. Lake Dardanelle is in Arkansas. I do a lot of videos on Lake Dardanelle. That's one of my favorite lakes here. It's they fish Elite Series tournaments out there all the time, and it's one of the best lakes in Arkansas. Super pressured. It's really tough. Like I go out and catch 15 pounds, and I'm super happy because tournaments will take like 18 to 20 pounds to win out there. But those are the locals who fish out there every single week, and I know all the locals out there, so I have a lot of good spots. But it's tough to compete with locals. Like with me, I only fish 1 or 2 times a month sometimes, and to stay with the fish, to stay on them, it's pretty tough. I know someone that loves fishing shell beds, Bass Quest. That's funny. Shell beds are great. So awesome. Let me get back to the Navionics. We got one more lake to do, and then we'll open up for some Q&A. Kind of been doing Q&A along the way, but just trying to make sure I don't miss any of y'all. 48 people still on, an hour and 10 minutes in, so I'm not completely boring. I'm doing an awful job my first time, so that's good. So let's get to the last lake. Okay, so pull up Google Earth here. Okay, so the last lake we're going to look at is Lake Arthur. And Lake Arthur is a lake in Pennsylvania. It was submitted by 0017 Bulldog on YouTube, and it's a largemouth fishery. Again, it's in Pennsylvania, and it's a 20 horsepower limit on this lake. And didn't get a lot of other information on it. Looks like it has some clean water. Looks really good. That's all I know. So let's get to it. So, like I said, it looks like it's going to be a largemouth fishery. It didn't. I couldn't find anything online to tell me it had smallmouth, so I'm just going to assume it's largemouth. But I know a lot of these lakes up in Pennsylvania and New York have a lot of smallmouth, so I could be completely off base here. But I'm just going to assume it has largemouth for now. And then maybe hopefully someone in the comments can kind of correct me. So let's look here. So it doesn't really look like there's like a dam area on this lake. It's just kind of all just kind of a lake. I don't know really how to describe it. It looks like this is the cleaner part of the lake in here. A little bit different from the lakes we've been looking at. Looks really good. So this clear section of the lake, this is probably going to be the deepest area of the lake. We'll confirm that with Navionics in a minute. Has some boat docks here by the boat ramp. We have a little bit of like sandy beach here. That'd be a nice house to live at with your own beach on this awesome little lake. Has a nice like island kind of back in here. This looks like a good little spawning area. Maybe this is the dam. I don't know if that's really, if you would call it a dam, but there's a spillway here with some rock. Looks like it's a constant level lake, so that's always good. One thing about constant level lakes, guys, is that when you have a lake that stays at the same level year round, fish are always going to be shallow, 100% of the time. You're going to be able to catch fish up shallow regardless of the time of year. And if you're going to a new lake and you know that the water staying at a constant level, it's not going to rise or fall a lot, then I would go up shallow and just try to fish, jigs, spinnerbaits, rattle traps, crankbaits, things like that. Get up shallow, and you're normally going to be finding a good concentration of resident fish living up super shallow. So looks like, I don't know, there's like a whole like kayak scene. This is pretty nice. There might be a kayak class out here. Not helpful for us, but we got some nice little laydowns. Good point. This looks really good right here. There's a nice little point that sticks out. You can see from the bank. I don't know if that's like a, it looks like it might be a road bed. There's a road, maybe not. I don't know, but there's a nice looking point right here. Two more beautiful points. These look really good. Again, those sharp points like I talked about on Degray. If you guys were still here an hour ago, but sharp points are great in the pre-spawn. Again, this is Pennsylvania, so the lake's frozen over right now, and so I'm going to talk about this lake as if I was fishing it in March or April when the fish are going to be in pre-spawn. And when I say pre-spawn, I'm talking about water temps between 45 and 55 degrees, maybe 60 degrees, right before the fish move up to spawn and lay their eggs. So one thing I can notice, one thing I do actually a lot on Google Earth, which it's kind of, I'm not a big fan of like hole jumping on lakes. Like you see someone fishing and then you're like, let me go check that spot out later. I don't like that. If I wasn't going to fish there beforehand, I'm not going to fish there afterwards, especially for tournaments, because that just, I don't want to fish other people's water. I wasn't going to fish there anyways, so I also don't like pulling up like right next to someone and fishing. They do that a lot on, like I fished a tournament on Pickwick, and there were 3 people that pulled up right next to me, and they didn't ask. They just like pulled their boats 2 feet away from mine. I could have jumped in their boat, and they started casting on this ledge, and I was like, do you guys mind if, you know, we have this spot? And they're like, well, we're in the tournament too, and I didn't want to get in a big argument with them. So interesting stuff. I'm not a big fan of that. I won't do that to people. But either way, let's get back. Don't need to talk about all the controversial stuff here. So a lot of good laydowns. There's a bunch of isolated big laydowns. I've actually noticed if you look at Google Earth here, there's a big laydown right here. There's a big laydown right there. And these isolated laydowns, especially in the north, are really good. You can come up here and normally catch you can sometimes catch 15 or 20 fish off of these isolated laydowns. And so if you're watching 0017 Bulldog, look for these big isolated trees. Those are going to be really good spots that fish are going to pull up on. I see one here, and they're spread out. This guy's fishing them. A lot of times I'll have crappie in them too, but what's good about them is that there's not any other big trees around them. A lot of times you'll fish a lake and it has these standing trees, but it'll have them everywhere, kind of like the first lake we looked at, Cedar Creek. But when you have these isolated laydowns, those are the ones that are going to hold a bunch of fish and a lot of big fish. So this looks pretty shallow, but it goes on for ways, this little creek. I love all these little pockets and stuff. When the fish start coming up to spawn, they're going to want to spawn around these banks. They have these little pockets and cuts. This looks like a bank I fish on Lake Maumelle, actually, with some trees kind of overhanging. And these fish are going to probably just set up all around this bank, all up and down this bank. And you can catch them throwing a Carolina rig lizard, maybe fishing with like just a tube or a jig, Senko, something like that. Let's move out of this little creek. Kind of got stuck back in there. Got a nice big bridge. I don't know how the fishing is on bridges in the north. I didn't really do it too much. When I was up there, I know down here we catch a lot of fish suspended around bridge pilings and things. And it kind of depends on the lake. Like on Lake Hamilton, I know some guy won with 25 pounds one year fishing an Alabama rig down the side of bridge pilings. And I thought that was crazy. I thought you always just caught like spotted bass around bridges. But I always fish them now because they could be good. But maybe check that out with an Alabama rig or like a spoon or something. I guess we'll check the water depth too to make sure that would work. Got a nice little boat ramp right here, or a little road. Could be a road. Yeah, there's definitely a road bed here. The back of this creek. You can see the road comes in here, comes out here, and that road, that's going to be a great place to catch pre-spawn bass right there. I would run that with a crankbait or with a Carolina rig, and you're probably going to get bit right there. There's also a creek. If you look, this creek runs right here. So I bet this creek is going to run out. It's going to intersect right here with this road. And I bet there might be like a culvert or a bridge right here, somewhere in this area. So I would check that for a culvert or a bridge. Again, some isolated laydowns. A lot of good isolated laydowns. There's not a lot of laydowns, but it looks like there's a lot of good, big, isolated ones, which is even better, in my opinion. Let's keep looking around. This looks pretty good right here. This little island, this is interesting. The point of this island, like right in here, could be good on both sides. This could be a road. I'm not really sure. We can check that out on Navionics. This lake's big. I guess it's just the other lakes we're fishing were small. We're looking at were small. So A lot of water. Let's get to Navionics. I don't want to spend too much time looking at Google Earth because it can only tell you so much. This point looks really good. Right here, these 2 points leading into the marina. Marina, again, if you can fish in marinas in the state of Pennsylvania, go check out these marinas. They're protected from the wind and the current, and bass always spawn in marinas. If you're going to go fish in the spring, like April, May, and you know the spawn is on, and you've never been to a lake before, go to the biggest marina you can find and go in behind all the boat slips, and you're almost guaranteed to find fish back there. You're probably almost guaranteed to find other tournament boats or other bass fishermen too, but normally there's a big concentration of fish in there. So let me check the chat real quick. Let's see here. There are smallies in Arthur. Thank you, Jason. Dam to the upper left. Let's see here. I'm losing people. Down to 36. Might need to wrap up here pretty quick. I know you guys probably have families and stuff to get back to too. So I'm going to try to wrap it up here in the next like 15 minutes of like all the Navionics Google Earth stuff, do some Q&A, and then try to get you out of here by like 9:30. 2-hour stream is pretty long. I might need to get some water too. Throat's a little bit raspy. Okay, let's pull up Google, or let's pull up Navionics real quick. John, I see you like lizards. Lizards are really good in the spring for whatever reason. Here in Arkansas, people catch a ton of fish on lizards. I never threw one until I came here, and I love it. do the same stream like once a week. It was awesome. I definitely will. That's the plan. And I'm also, again, going to be posting all these videos to YouTube. So if you guys want to come back and just watch like a small chunk, I know it's super long. And so if you want to just like submit a lake and you can't make the stream, the video will be up on YouTube and you can come back and watch it, and maybe watch it in parts or whatever you want to do. Being here live on the live stream is awesome as well, just because I can make sure I have some people backing up what I'm saying or fact checking me. I really do appreciate that. I also appreciate, again, people for donating. That's awesome. I really do appreciate that. So let me get to the Navionics here. So, whoa, I've never seen all these. Got like restrooms and stuff marked here. I've never seen that before. That is very interesting. This is a very fancy Navionics map. So right in here, this is that creek that we were talking about that had that road bed. That road bed came across right here, and this map's kind of glitching out on me. That road bed comes across right here, and there's a really nice creek channel that just like slams into this bank here. I like that a lot. These fish might actually set up right on this little part of the bank here in the spring, like March, April time, and then stage right where that creek channel slams into the bank, and then move back into this creek back in here. So I would check this bank, especially when it warms up and you get like a warm day with some sun. I would check that spot up shallow, because a lot of times these fish will pull up out of the creek onto that bank. And if there's a boat ramp there with the actual ramp coming down, that's even better. Right here, the creek channel, we have a nice like blue line for this lake. I like that. This creek channel swings right up against this bank. This is a great jerkbait bank, it looks like. I would definitely throw a jerkbait down this bank. It's 14 feet of water, which is still plenty of water depth for a jerkbait. Just throw like a Lucky Craft pointer down there. Again, let it sit for 7-8 seconds. You're going to be catching them. Got the bridge we talked about. I really like, let's see here. I really like this right here. I don't know what's going on, but there's like a little, this road kind of dips in, and then there's a little bit of a point that sticks out here. I've caught fish like this on Sam Rayburn. Normally there's lily pads. Or there's lily pads at Sam Rayburn, but even if there's like rock or something, this creek channel swings hard into this bank, and there's a little bit of a point or like a hump that's off the bank here. And one thing to notice, guys, when you're looking at Navionics is right here, whenever you see a big flat area with no contour lines, that's going to indicate hard bottom. And especially if you're on a grass lake, this is a great way to identify areas that have hard bottom, and you can kind of narrow down like a big field of grass. Just look for areas with no contour lines in like a big circle here. That's almost always going to be hard bottom. So I said that 4 or 5 times. Anyways, when I was looking at Navionics earlier, actually, this lake, this is the part of the lake that I got the most excited about. So right here, especially for wintertime fishing, and the fact that it has smallmouth in it, this stuff right here is amazing. This little creek channel like swing, there's a nice little sharp drop against this point, and then there's a big, huge flat. Smallmouth on the lake, especially when it's clear like this lake, they'll spawn out here in like 12, 13 feet of water sometimes, especially if it's really clear. And a lot of guys will use those giant cones. I don't know if you've seen like Mark Zona's show where he puts the cone, the traffic cone on the water, and it has like glass on it, and you can see down straight to the bottom. It cuts all the glare off the water. And they'll sight fish for smallmouth in like 13 feet of water. And so this little drop is on the outside of a big spawning flat. I would consider this a spawning flat. And that little spot right there is probably a really good summertime spot, but also a really good wintertime spot. And I would throw a tube if there's smallmouth here. Just put a 3/4 ounce head or a 1/2 ounce head in a tube, cast it out and drag it really slow. You can also drop shot or spy bait down there. That could be a really good spot. There's a little swing right here that looks really good. This looks like jerkbait water to me, especially in a tube. Especially when I fished in Wisconsin, spots like this were always really good for snapping a tube. You cast that tube out there, let it sink to the bottom, and I do it in like a shad color, and you snap it up off the bottom, let it sink, snap it up. I've caught some big smallmouth in the pre-spawn, well, we don't really have too much of a pre-spawn in Wisconsin because the season starts in May, but whenever you do get a pre-spawn, that's how I'd catch them. Again, creek channel swings in on this, so it just swings back around, big spawning flat. Big spawning flat, and then there's a little actual ditch that runs in here, and this is a really good place for shad to kind of group up, and so you probably could find some good bait piled up in this little flat or in this little ditch, and so you might want to put the boat like out here in the channel and work a deep diving jerkbait like a KVD 1.5 or a KVD jerkbait, KVD deep diving jerkbait. That's a good one I like to throw, and just fish it in the middle of that ditch. It could be a really good spot. Let's keep going up through here. I love the conversation going on in the chat, by the way, guys. I've just been pumped that you guys are willing to, talk about your favorite lures, talk about your favorite areas and stuff like that. Just trying to help all of us catch more fish. That's really the goal with this channel. And so, it's great that you guys are, talking to each other in the chat. It's really, I think, going to help grow this channel and grow a good, source of information for bass fishing. So right up here, let's keep going up here. Again, all these, this lake just looks amazing. I know that Bulldog, you're on here, and this lake just looks dynamite. I would check all these areas that have these little humps. These are really good in the springtime for smallmouth. Will actually spawn up here. Right in here, you can see this map's kind of like glitching out. I apologize for that, but you can see the creek wraps around in here, and it also kind of wraps back in here. And this little hump right here is definitely gonna have a rock pile there. You're gonna almost guaranteed have some rock up on top of that little flat. And smallmouth love to get in rocks, and even in the summertime they'll pull up on these spots because there's a creek channel right here. You can cast like a big spook or a walking bait over the top of that spot and catch fish. So a lot of good flat water in here. This looks like kind of even some largemouth water back in here with some docks. Trying to pick out the best spots. I'm trying to get around this lake because there's a lot right here. This spot looks really good right here. The creek channel swings in, but then this is a flat point, so that creek channel is going to tug in, and a lot of times people will fish right where that creek channel swings, but then as March and April comes along, the fish are going to move off that steep stuff and up onto this shallower point. And so they're going to be, creek channel's going to swing like this. They're going to move off of this really steep water up onto the shallower point, and either they're going to spawn here or stage here to move up onto the bank. So great little point there. You can probably tell, guys, I'm going over the that creek was coming in. You showed it on Google Earth. We'd love to see it on Navionics. Is that this creek up here? Is that what you guys are talking about? Let's see here. I think this is that creek, potentially. Maybe I'll give it a second. I know that there's a little bit of a delay on this stream too, so I'm just gonna wait a second while you guys let me know if this is the creek. If it's not, I apologize. But this creek does look really good. The navionics is kind of, when you zoom in, it doesn't work super well, but there's a nice creek channel. It's pretty shallow, like 2 foot of water in here. The creek channel runs in. This looks like a nice little creek. Maybe we're going to wait just a few more seconds here. You guys are going to tell exactly how long this lag is. Okay, well, hopefully that's the creek and I got to show it to you guys. If not, you can check it out in Navionics web app like I was talking about. I don't want to sit here too long waiting. So let's keep looking. So right here, this is that next little area that I wanted to show, that little island kick. It kind of cuts across, and it's really nice, like a little saddle back in here. And one thing that I'll definitely say is that this spot is going to be a great spot for shell beds or for like mussel beds to kind of congregate. What'll happen is the wind will push through this little narrow spot, this little funnel, and then what's going to happen is that there's going to be a lot of water pushing over this, and then on the back side of these little ridges and humps here, shell is going to congregate. And so I would check on both sides of these little humps, but somewhere around this hump right here, there's probably going to be some hard bottom and some shell that builds up from the wind and from just any kind of current. And so, or even like right on this little turn, somewhere around this hump, there's going to be some shell most likely piled up. And if you can't find that with your graph, sometimes it's kind of hard to find with your graph. I have a setting on my Hummingbird I use. It's like a red-green palette, and I'll do a video on that at some point. I just haven't fish shell beds yet. I haven't been able to fish in like May and June yet, when I normally catch them on the shell beds. But what I would do is just, if you don't have that, I would take a Carolina rig, and I would throw a tungsten weight on your Carolina rig. And it's kind of scary to do that because obviously you're throwing tungsten and it's really expensive and you don't want to lose it. But I would just put it on like some 25-pound big game for your main line, and then fire that Carolina rig way down there and just feel around, and you'll be able to tell when the bottom changes from like rock to shell. The shell kind of feels sticky and it'll kind of grab your weight, and it's just a different sensation. It's hard to explain on camera, but I would just try to feel around for that weird sticky bottom, and that's going to be a really good spot where you can find smallmouth and largemouth stacked up. Okay, here's that little marina, and again, it has nice flat water on it. Looks like a really good spawning area. And then there's a ton of water on this lake. If it were me and I was going to fish a new lake that has a lot of water like this, guys, I would focus on one part of the lake. And for me, I think the most dynamic region of this lake that has the most to offer is basically from this bridge across. So if I was going to come out here and fish for a day, I do a lot of my videos. I fish brand new water all the time. All the lakes I fished in Oklahoma this year on my channel are all lakes I'd never fished before, or only fished like once or twice. And so when I go to new bodies of water, I normally try to pick one area of the lake and just stick it out there. And sometimes it works great. Sometimes it's terrible. I did that on Grand Lake. I fished there for the first time this year, and I fished way up the river, and the fishing was awful up there. And apparently the bite was really good on the lower end on like offshore points and like brush piles and stuff, which is one of my favorite ways to fish. But either way, I think that it's just a really good idea to kind of pick one area of the lake so you don't spread yourself too thin and spend time running around the whole lake, because it's hard to figure out what's happening all over the lake. A lot of times the fish will be doing the same thing in one area of the lake. They'll be patterned on secondary points or shallow rock or lily pads on one end of the lake, and then on this end of the lake they might be on cane, or they might be fishing like brush piles or something like that. So just stick with one part of the lake, and I would start up here, and I would fish around these spawning flats, back up in this creek back in here where that creek channel runs in, maybe down around this dam area. Looks really good, especially in the winter and stuff like that. So yeah. Okay, so let me get back over the comments real quick. Let's see here. Getting a lot of conversation going on. Thank you, Brian. Doing this is a brilliant idea. Appreciate that. Good stuff. Thank you. That was Mario. Thank you. Um, Do you fish collegiately for Arkansas? That comes from Sean. I used to. I used to fish on the Arkansas team. I did when I was a freshman, and my freshman year, I think we went from like 68th in the country to 4th in the country my freshman year. And I won the Southern Conference Championship, or Southern Conference Invitational on Lake Dardanelle my freshman year. And then after that, I decided to focus on college and really tried to get my grades going. I really put a lot of time into school. I knew it was only going to be, I was only going to be in school one time, and so pushing hard for a 4.0 GPA, and so I was doing that. But I loved college fishing. It was really fun. It was a great time being with all the guys, traveling around. You just miss I missed like 4, 5, 6 weeks of school every semester. It was just too much strain on me for that. But I'm hoping to get back into tournament fishing here soon. I did a ton of junior tournaments, fished junior circuits since I was like 8, 9 years old. I fished like 130, 140 tournaments in my life, junior and adult tournaments. So I love tournament fishing. I just want to get back into it when I have time to commit to it. So after grad school. Let's see here. Brian, I don't know if I got to that creek that you were talking about. Sorry about that if I didn't. Zoom in on the creek channel and point it out, John. Sorry about that. I don't know if I got that. What's the difference between a hump and a ledge on your graph? Okay, so hump and a ledge. So let me talk about that. That's a great question, John. So a hump. So a hump is going to be any area. Let me find one here. So this is a hump right here. So a hump is an area where you get, well, maybe this is going to be better. Bit easier. So let's go back down to a hump that I fish all the time out here on Lake Degray. Let me find a good one that's clear. Okay. So here's a hump right here out in the middle of this lake. So a hump is any area where the water comes up to a circle and then it drops off on all sides. So it's basically one big circle, and it's going to drop off on all sides. So you see it's 18 feet here, and then it's 30 feet around the edge, drops to 50, drops to 80. So it's a huge, just basically like a big mound. Think of it as like a mountain. So a hump is like a mountain underwater. And then a ledge is going to be an area, go up here to a ledge that I fish on Degray. Here's a ledge. So this is a ledge. This is one I catch them on in Degray a lot. So a ledge is any area where you have the water coming up and the creek channel swings in, and then you have a big flat behind it. So this is a big flat right here. And then the creek channel comes in, swings on this side, and it swings on this side. So that creek channel is coming through. And a ledge is anywhere where you have a big flat, and then the creek channel runs right by it. So if you think about it, it's kind of like your table. I have my table here. I have a bunch of stuff on my desk. I don't want to pull the table down, but think about your table. The top of the table is like the top of a ledge. It's a big flat space. Then as you drop off the end of your table, that's the creek channel. And so a hump is like a big mountain underwater, and then a ledge is basically like kind of like a kitchen table, where there's a big flat space and then it drops off on one side. But obviously a ledge, unlike a hump, doesn't drop off on all sides. It only drops off, like in this case, on 2 sides. So it drops off this side, and then this side over here runs up to the bank. Okay, let me keep going through questions here. Okay. My name for this lake is Lake Nemesis. John, or Bulldog, I'm glad that I was able to kind of help you out. Again, I'm not going to be able to go through every single spot I love to fish on these streams, but hopefully it kind of gives you an idea of what I'm looking for. When you show up to a new lake, what do you use to initially find fish? Matthew Holly, good question. So when I go to a brand new lake, the first thing I do, I actually do the exact thing we're doing right now. I start out by pulling up Google Earth. So I'm going to pull up Google Earth. Let's go to, what do you guys want to look at? You wanted to look at like Lake Gunnersville, right? So let's pull up Gunnersville real quick, and then I'll just do that because I've never fished out there, and so I would just tell you I kind of know a little bit about Gunnersville. One thing that is nice, a lot of lakes I fish, I've watched pretty much every single bass fishing TV show on every tournament lake since 1985, 86, something like that. Maybe 80, maybe 89, probably 89, 1989. So every bass and FLW show that's like ever existed. And I read pretty much every bass fishing magazine that's come out since like 1999. So I know a lot about a lot of lakes, even if I've never fished there. So like Gunnersville, I don't know the names of all these places, but there's a lot of places that I know they're just like really good water. So I know back up in here, let's see here. Back up in here, I don't know what this is called, but I know a lot of the pros will fish back up in here, and there's a lot of really good grass up in this area of the lake. And so what I'm going to do when I go, to answer your question, when I go to a new lake, I'm just going to pull up Google Earth, and I'm going to look for water that looks similar to lakes I fish in Arkansas. So down here, this big, open, expansive area, this doesn't look very familiar to me. I don't even know if I'm still in Gunnersville. Maybe I am. Yeah. But this area doesn't look all that familiar to me. I don't really like the way this sets up. It might be the best area in the lake, but I don't really like the look of this part of the lake. It doesn't look like anything I'm familiar with. But if I come back over to this creek that I was just talking about, this lake, or this part of the creek, looks a lot like Lake Ouachita to me. Lake Ouachita is a lake I just did my most recent video in, and you can see in here, there's a lot of nice grass. You can kind of see there's like a green tint to the water. This is all grass. And so what I would do is I would probably come in here and I would zoom the lake back a few years using that thing I showed you earlier, and this is probably the best image. So you could see all this grass that's grown up in here, and so I would say, okay, this is a grassy area. I really like this area. If I was coming in here to fish in the winter time, I'd probably say, okay, maybe there's some structure out in the middle of this pocket. In the spring on Lake Gunnersville in Alabama, these fish are going to move up and get in this grass, and you can catch them on a rattle trap, deep diving crankbait, things like that, up in this grass, chatterbait. And so I know the fish are going to probably move up here to spawn at some point, so I would start looking and move my way back out of this creek, back out to the main part of the lake, and start looking for structure or any kind of cover out in the middle. So I would then come over to my Navionics and come over here, and I would go to, let me pull up Lake Gunnersville. Oops, not spelling that right. Okay, maybe it's Gunnersville Lake. There we go. Sometimes it does that in Navionics. If you type, if you can't find your lake on Navionics, go and type in Gunners, like I did Lake Gunnersville. It didn't show up. Type in Gunnersville Lake or whatever, and you can do that. So I would come down to this bay then, whatever this is called, and I would look at it and I would say, okay, this is the area that had all that grass in it. And so now I look out here and say, oh, there's some road beds. This is a creek channel that runs in right here. Look at that creek channel right there. That creek channel looks great. And there was, well, there's a white box on it right now. It looks great. Oh, thank you, Nathan. I'm talking about Hartwell. Thank you. That's what I just watched that Bassmaster Classic show. It was bugging the crap out of me. There's a little creek bed right here. And so this is the creek channel, and this creek bed comes in. So I would definitely check out this area. The fish are probably going to stage out here. I would check out this little point right here. There's grass, and it drops off into the channel. I check that out. And I would just kind of do that around the entire lake. So to answer your question, when I go around the new lakes, I do exactly what we did tonight. Just over the entire lake, and I'd probably spend an hour or 2 hours looking at stuff. I would drop pins on Google Earth. I'd take those pins and move them over to my Humminbird unit, put those in my graph, and then if I had like a 3-day practice, my goal would be to knock off every single one of those pins in my graph or waypoints in my graph. And I try to just graph over all of them, fish all of them, and most of the time, 95% of the time that works, and I find enough fish to do pretty well in the tournament. And in my opinion, when you're practicing for a tournament, it's all just about having enough spots to make it through a day. I always used to struggle in junior tournaments where I would fish I would have one practice day and I'd fish 4 or 5 areas and I'd catch fish, and I'd come back to the tournament day and they wouldn't be there, obviously, because it's hard to catch fish in the same spot doing the same thing every day. And I would only have those 4 or 5 areas, and I'd run out of spots to fish halfway through the day. And so when I pre-fish for tournaments now, I try to cover as much water as I can and just try to graph as many good-looking areas as I can, so that even if I don't fish every area, I at least have 30 spots in mind that I could fish if I run out of spots where I caught fish. So that's that. Let's keep going down this. Isn't a creek channel? There's an actual creek that emptied in the lake. Brian's just trying to read through some stuff. Learned a lot tonight. Thank you for the content. Thank you, Mike G. I appreciate that. I'm glad that you guys found it at least somewhat interesting. Going to fishing a tournament tournament next Saturday on Greason. Any advice? Gabe. Greason. 2 things you could do. It's really cold in Arkansas right now, actually. One thing you could do, go to the lower end of the lake, throw a jerkbait all day. Just go throw a jerkbait on the lower and midsection of the lake. All those like creek channel swing areas I kind of talked about in all these other lakes. Just throw a jerkbait, let it sit for forever, and you're going to catch fish. I fished a tournament out there with one of the Mises, actually. It was a Bassmaster Weekend Series tournament, and I finished second in that tournament, and we threw jerkbaits all day on the lower and mid end of the lake, just throwing jerkbaits. I probably can't get into too much now, but that's what I would be doing if I was fishing out there. Hey, Johnny, you're talking about Hartwell. Yep, thank you, Nathan. Just read that. And then John, how many major lakes are there to the Tennessee River system? Not sure. There's a lot, and they all have fish in them, so maybe someone can get John on that. It looks like I answered a lot of questions in the chat. Hopefully you guys got something out of this, and hopefully you enjoyed this video or this live stream. So again, it's going to be posted online. It's going to be posted on my channel right after I finish this up. And again, Basquest just said John a lot, Pickwick, Kentucky, all that stuff. So yeah, 9. That's a ton. So let's see here. So either way, thanks to John Bolton, Gabe Woolham's Classic Top 40 Radio, and BassQuest for donations. I really appreciate it. Again, send in your lakes to my email address. Email at fishthemoment1@gmail.com. Tell me the lake name, the state, the county, water clarity, and water temperature. Make sure it has Navionics by checking the Navionics web app. And I'm going to look at 3 more lakes next week. And I'm just going to keep stockpiling them. And I'm just going to go through the list. I probably won't be able to get to all of them, so I apologize if I'm not getting to your lake right away. I'm going to get a lot of requests, which is a good thing. So I'm going to try to do like 3 lakes every video or every live stream. Maybe 4. I probably won't do my own lake next one, so I might try to do 4 next time. Also, in the comments of this video or in this live stream, let me know if there's anything you want me to improve, anything you want me to talk about, if I'm talking too fast, if I'm not covering the information detailed enough, or if you want these to be shorter, longer, whatever. So let me know. And if you have any specific questions about like what a creek channel is, what humps are, how to read topo maps, things like that, I have a video on my channel called How to Find Fish Year-Round Using Creek Channels. Topo Maps Explained. Watch that video. I spent a ton of time on that video, and I think it's probably one of the most comprehensive tools on how to find fish using topo maps, using Navionics. So watch that video if you haven't already, and share it with friends if they're wanting to watch these live streams. And other than that, thank you guys for watching. Again, it's great that I'm getting 40 people still watching it, an hour and 45 minutes into the stream. It's my first one. It's just amazing. So thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.